We pay taxes, follow statutes, and carry passports as the standard conditions of modern life. But these behaviors are not just cultural norms. They are the user requirements for a societal architecture designed to centralize control. For thousands of years, version 1.0 of this system relied on physical mass. The Roman and Persian empires established order by using monumental architecture and standing armies to hoard grain, gold, and labor. This model faced a constant energy crisis. Chaining bodies required vast amounts of resources to maintain, and the inherent friction of brute force oppression made large-scale empires expensive and difficult to sustain over centuries. To achieve true longevity, the mechanism of control had to become invisible. The ruling class realized that the most efficient way to manage a population is to integrate the constraints directly into the subject's worldview. The British Empire introduced the first major upgrade, colonizing the mind. By training the local population to enforce colonial rules, they reduced the cost of occupation and turned the oppressed into the system's primary defenders. In 1835, Lord Macaulay presented the code for this psychological upgrade to the British Parliament. His goal was to produce a generation of humans who were native in appearance, but British in taste, intellect, and ethics. This educational syllabus prioritized the erasure of native history. By removing critical thinkers and Zenfers from the curriculum, the system replaced independent inquiry with a strict, unquestioning reverence for Western authority. The classroom itself was modeled after industrial production lines. This layout enforced factory-style discipline, requiring students to sit in fixed grids, face a central authority, and wait for external instruction. This training prepared a workforce for decades of repetitive labor. The classroom didn't prioritize enlightenment. It produced a standardized class of clerks and factory workers who would operate the gears of a centralized hierarchy without question. The modern school system is not failing to educate, it is successfully executing its original 1835 programming, manufacturing a compliant, tax-paying population that lacks the tools to challenge the elite. Following World War II, the control system received a sophisticated interface update. The colonial model was rebranded as a global order, burying the mechanics of extraction beneath international institutions that promised peace and progress. Look at the UN Security Council. 193 nations are present, but 5 countries hold a specific veto power. This structural bottleneck allows a tiny minority to paralyze any global decision that threatens their geopolitical or economic monopolies. This map shows how economic leverage replaced military force. By utilizing debt through institutions like the IMF, the system traps developing nations in cycles of interest payments, ensuring a steady flow of wealth from the global south into Western vaults. When debt is insufficient, the system relies on engineered instability. Arbitrary borders drawn by colonial diplomats continue to trigger proxy wars, converting human conflict into profit for a massive military-industrial complex. The displacement of 100 million people is not an error in diplomacy. Within this system, human suffering is a calculated consequence of maintaining market control and defense contracts. Modern borders and global financial councils are not the foundation of a free world. They are the reinforced bars of a global extraction cage that has become increasingly visible to those inside it. Then, the system encountered a glitch. The internet accidentally networked the world, allowing ordinary people to bypass the centralized information filters that had managed public opinion for nearly 2 centuries. Digital transparency began to reveal the raw data of our world. Consumers discovered that the cobalt in their high-tech devices was being mined by children, exposing the modern slavery at the base of the global supply chain. Simultaneously, the moral authority of the global elite collapsed. High-profile leaks and digital investigations shattered the illusion that those at the top of the system were subject to the same laws as the rest of humanity. A connected generation is now analyzing these contradictions. They are mobilizing by the millions, refusing to accept the environmental and economic debt burdens inherited from the legacy system. In Sri Lanka, thousands of citizens coordinated through the network to physically occupy and dismantle a corrupt administration that had relied on information control to stay in power. These are not isolated events. From Bangladesh to the Middle East, we are seeing a synchronized systemic rejection of the underlying colonial code. Because the public can finally see the mechanics of their own exploitation, they realize the old system cannot be reformed. It is time to uninstall the legacy code and deploy an architecture designed for transparency. To finally move past the current global crisis, we must replace centralized bottlenecks with a distributed societal architecture. The Global AI-Powered Governance System, or GAIGS, is a direct upgrade to the 1945 order. It uses technology to strip power from the middlemen who profit from corruption and opacity. First is blockchain transparency. On an immutable ledger, every public dollar and decision becomes trackable by any citizen. Second is AI-assisted democracy. A neutral core digests citizen votes, simulating outcomes to allocate resources based on data, not political favors. This shift removes the structural need for a centralized elite. When trust is distributed through a verifiable network, the traditional leverage used to hoard power effectively disappears. Sustaining this new system requires a complete rewrite of the 1835 Education Protocol. We are moving away from passive obedience and toward active, problem-solving participation. The scientific game-based model replaces rote memorization with personalized AI mentorship. Students learn by tackling real-world engineering challenges within a collaborative global network. Within this framework, solving a complex water purification challenge provides a verifiable record of skill. This cryptographic proof allows the student to bypass corporate gatekeepers and secure project funding directly from the communities they serve. AI can be used to build a perfect digital cage, or it can be used to coordinate a global network of cooperation. The tools that exposed the flaws in the old system are the same tools required to build the new one. The legacy system relied on your isolation and your silence. The new architecture depends on your participation. Stop being a user of a broken system and start becoming a builder of its replacement.